Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of Inspire to Invest has been brought to you by Conduit Asset Management, Five Oaks Land Development, and Stonehearth Properties. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have a wonderful guest today named Judi Pare, who's also given me lots of coaching and guidance with my own investing career in the past, I'd say 5-ish years. To give you a little bit of background on Judi, she has been in real estate for 2014, and she has been coaching other investors for the past 7 years. She's very respected and trusted in our community, and she's got a very large network of peers and colleagues, not only in real estate sales, but also in land development. Judi's always on the pulse for the best investment and education opportunities to provide for her partners, students, and investors. And when she's not working, she can be found in her vacation properties, either up at the cottage in Northern Ontario or in Italy. So welcome, Judi. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So obviously the focus of this real estate podcast is focused around investing. But what I want to know is what you were doing before real estate?
That's a great question. So I actually own a learning and development company as well. So I'm an instructional designer, and I was doing a great deal of instructional design before I started in real estate. You know, for various companies. I worked at the big banks. I worked at BlackBerry. I've done, I could teach you anything from poking your eye out with a laser to not landing yourself in jail for money laundering. So that's what I was doing before that, was education and more education and just more and more education.
Yeah. So it makes sense now you're educating people in this space. What was really the catalyst then to finding real estate and evolving your career into that?
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually getting laid off, or my contract was ending with one of the big banks, and I had talked to my boss, and I said, "Please, I don't know what I'm going to do next. Like I've been doing this for a long time. I'd worked at the banks for a long time in instructional design, just in various divisions, like in capital markets and wealth management." And my boss said to me, "Well, why don't you do something in real estate? Like you've got real estate properties, you've got income properties. Why don't you go educate in real estate?" And so we had gone to see Scott McGillivray on the Wealth Tour a couple of weeks before, and she said, maybe they're hiring. And so then I looked at that and I thought, wow, what would they want me for? Little old me. I had done, some income properties, and I was doing it really well. And I went and I interviewed and got a position there as a coach, because naturally with my teaching background, and I was a real estate investor already. I was already doing just a few things, but I think the big thing that got me into it was my husband had a property, and it was paid off. And I was newly married to him, and I had always wanted properties, and couldn't really get into it because I had financial difficulties in the past. And so I always wanted home ownership. I felt like it was really important. And my husband had a property, and I said, I'm going to go do income properties. And I bought a few. And then my boss said, you've got to get into this because you love it. You're really good at it. Maybe you need to do more about it. So shout out to Tracy, who said, Judi, go do this. And I think that was what pushed me over the edge, is somebody else told me I could.
Yeah, no, I think everyone just needs that little push, right? Now, it sounds as if you were kind of straddling both sides. So for a lot of real estate investors, they kind of hang on to their job and their employment income and stuff like that. So for you, would you define yourself now as like more solely focused on real estate investing, or like, are you still doing a bit of both? Like, what does kind of a regular day look like for you?
Yeah, I'm going to say that I'm 100% full-time real estate investor. And then if we take my 110% day, 10% of my time is actually still in education. So I still offer services as a coach. I still work for, my former employer as a content specialist. So I help them develop content, and I do that sort of thing. And I still do some part-time coaching, mostly because I love the community. I want to give back. And it's I can't do it full time. I don't have time. So I've decided that, the most I can give to that job or that role is about 6 to 8 hours a week.
Okay.
And then I just manage my Yeah, I think it's still a fair amount. I'd like to maybe one day get down to about 4 hours a week. I don't think I'll ever leave it, to be honest, because I love it. Like
Yeah.
I love it so much. It's a really big part of me because it's an
Yeah.
educational piece of it. And I
Yeah.
like giving back. So, the company that I work a little bit for part-time, really helped me launch my real estate career.
Yeah.
So it's part of giving back to that community.
Yeah. And I think it helps you just maintain some of those relationships and connections. And like
Mhm.
your bio said, just keeping a pulse on what everybody's doing. Now you
Exactly.
talked about obviously your real estate investing full time. So what kind of projects do you have on the go right now?
Oh, I've got so many. I have 7 right now that are development projects. I've got them in various cities. We're building about 450 homes.
Wow.
We've got them in Windsor, Brantford, Hamilton, and the Muskokas.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of affordable and senior housing.
Hmm.
And I have one project that we're building two projects that we're building to sell. But the rest of the projects, the other 5, are buy and holds, and we'll keep about 330 of the units that we're building,
Yeah.
and uh, and keep them in the portfolio, which we're putting in a REIT. So we're just launching a Plentitude REIT in the next few weeks,
Yeah.
and our projects are going to move into that, so people can invest in the entire portfolio, not just in
One
individual
project.
projects.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, can you bridge the gap? Because you talked about short-term rentals and having kind of the cottage properties, and the next is like bam, like doing 7 apartment buildings and 500 units, and that's like
Yeah,
a big jump. So for anyone who doesn't
sure.
know you, can you talk about bridging that gap and how you went from having some cottages to building apartments?
Yeah, so it started with a project in Pickering. I had bought some land and severed it. We had bought 2 properties side by side and realized that we could turn them into 3 properties, right? So there was 150-foot frontage between the 2 of them. And
Yeah.
so we decided, okay, you know what? We can build 3 houses on these properties. And we went through the process and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process. It was the process of land severance and getting to building permit for me was it just seemed very process driven, and I like process. I
Yeah.
do well in process.
Yeah.
So it was just a matter of checking off boxes, doing these things, and checking off tasks.
Yeah.
So as I was doing it, I thought, this is really cool. I really enjoy this. And so then I got involved in another one and then
Yeah.
another. And so it just kind of transitioned that way. I found a lane that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I still love vacation properties. I mean, I'm taking 25 investors to Italy this week, and
Woo!
we're going to go look, we're going to look at some vacation properties there. And I still have my vacation properties, but I really like, sometimes you invest and you only invest in one area.
Yeah.
That's a part of my portfolio that I really enjoy, is the vacation piece of it, and I really enjoy the development piece of it. So,
Yeah.
and I've partnered with a lot of people, so I'm using their skill set more so
Yeah.
than mine for a lot of it.
Yeah, and I think there's got to be something fulfilling when you think about land development and taking it from something that was to something that becomes this beautiful thing. And, I got to see those properties when they were, wood burning furnaces. And, I think I was less than a week out from my due date with my daughter, but I came and,
Right.
and got to tour the properties. And then I got to see these majestic, beautiful custom homes when they were completed a couple of years later. So I think just from the aspect of creating, there's something really
Hmm.
beautiful just seeing a project through from like, what it was really like, what it became was so impressive.
And I think that's part of my skill set too, is design, is creating and design and staying within my unique ability. And even as an instructional designer before, it's
Yeah.
got the word design in it.
Yeah.
I like taking content and or land or something and developing it into something else,
Yeah.
and making it, the highest and best use for what it is. And
Yeah.
I think it just comes naturally to me, like being
Yeah.
able to do that. And yeah, you're right. Like we took some ugly buildings and we made some
Yeah.
beautiful homes, absolutely beautiful homes that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
So I think that felt really good.
Yeah.
And now
And
to
you did it
go,
during the pandemic too. So just to add some context to that, I had my daughter in December of 2019. I think I saw you like the end of November. And then
Mhm.
obviously 3 months later, we went into lockdown. So you're dealing with like lockdowns, you're dealing with supply chain issues, just the way that the pandemic really changed the industry in a lot of ways. So maybe you can talk about how you kind of got through that and some of the challenges that you faced.
Yeah, that was actually one of the biggest challenges I've ever had was building these three homes during a pandemic because you really had to rely on your team for one, and your team. I needed to be on site full time. It wasn't something I could do remotely. It's a very hands-on position when you're doing development and building homes. And I was up north. I was at the cottages. I was at the vacation properties. And my son was our site supervisor, and he called me and he said, look, mom, I need you here. I can't do this by myself. And plus, he was isolated. So there was that whole thing of he didn't have his circle either, right? And so he said, I need you here. I need you to come here. I don't want to be alone on this
Yeah.
project and do this. So I moved and we rented a house from a neighbor that was just the dumpiest little house across the street from our project.
Yeah.
And I threw a mattress on the floor and literally slept and we moved a desk in. The only furniture we had was patio furniture. We had
Wow.
outdoor patio furniture that we brought into the office. We
Yeah.
used the house like an office. We each threw a mattress on the floor. We used the patio furniture for our workstation, for eating, for everything. And we stayed there during the project, and our trades would come in and out, and we could keep our social distance. We could do that sort of thing and keep building and keep the project moving.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the big things was our relationship with our suppliers.
Yeah.
Our suppliers were very important in this, and being able to get materials when you couldn't go shopping was unbelievable. It was unbelievably hard.
Yeah.
Um, I have a great relationship with the Pro Desk at Home Depot, and I was able to, pick up the phone and call the desk and say, "Look, I need tile or I need this," and they would actually schedule a time with me and bring the tile outside. They
Yeah.
would bring it out to me and say, "What do you need? What do you?" And one time we were stuck in mud with our bobcat, and I said, "I need to pull these chains out. It's going to freeze overnight. I need something." And they just fixed something up for me.
Oh, wow.
I drove up, they put it in my car, they invoiced
In
me
the
the
cloak
next
of
day.
darkness, like when you think back to those times, the way people were literally trying to conduct business in a way that was safe and abide by the rules, but sometimes you had to bend them just to get things done.
Exactly. So they were amazing. So it was all about relationship for me.
Yeah.
Getting through the pandemic was about the relationships with the trades and the relationships with the suppliers, and finding ways to still follow the rules,
Yeah.
but get stuff done.
Yeah.
And get it. And it was a very challenging time. I can tell you there were times where, I thought the project was going to sink us.
Yeah.
Like I really did think that. And it was the most challenging, but we got through it and we built beautiful homes.
Yeah.
It took us probably twice as long as it should have taken us,
Yeah. But at
but
least
that's
you got
okay.
through it and you didn't
Yeah.
sink the project. So I think that's amazing. And I guess
Yeah.
leading into that, when you look at your successes, so thinking back to all the different things that you've done, what would you
Mhm.
define as, the height of your success and why was that so important to you?
I think the height of my success was about 6 months ago. It was about 6 months ago, maybe 8 months actually, I actually decided that I had gaps in my education, gaps in what I knew and what I needed to do as an employer. My team was getting bigger and bigger and bigger,
Yeah.
and really what I wasn't so great at was running my business. So I went and got business coaching. So I went and signed up for some business coaching. What I did, I changed four things in my business last year, and it made a huge difference for me. One of the things I did is I got more coaching. For one, I spent a lot of money on coaching
Yeah.
and decided that I needed to improve myself. I needed to improve myself as a business owner.
Yeah.
And then I hired more people. It was really important to me to hire more people. So the whole who, not how idea of growing your business, I hired some really great people on my team. I said no way more often. I learned what my unique ability is, and I said no to everything else that I'm not good at. or
Yeah.
everything that I'm good at, sort of, or
You don't
excellent
like
at,
doing.
but I don't
Yeah.
like doing, I said no to. So
Yeah.
that's one of the key things I did. And I took way more vacations last year. And I know, people say, oh, you're just starting out. How do you take time off? I made it a personal contract to myself that I would take time off,
Yeah.
that I would take time off. I would go away. So after every one of my training workshops, I scheduled a trip. So I went to Italy several times. This is why I'm buying properties over there.
Yeah.
Is I went over and I found that the more I freed myself from my business, the more business I could do.
Yeah. I can
It was
understand that. And you also have to present, you want to show up the best way that you can be. And if you're just burnt out and stressed, you're not
mhm,
really giving that to yourself the right way. You're not giving it to your team. So I do think that you've got to manage that balance appropriately, right? No matter what stage of the game you're in, like you can work hard for a
exactly.
period of time, but it's not sustainable. So you just have to be mindful of what you really need. And you're not here just to like work and die, right? So I think you just
Exactly.
need to be
Exactly. So
mindful.
I did a lot more of that. I took a lot more holidays. I spent a lot more time with family, and my business grew 10 times when I made those changes.
Yeah.
So for me, that was, I think, the pivotal success moment was identifying really what my strengths were.
Yeah. And
And
I just have to ask, where are your properties in Italy?
okay, so they're going to be in a little area called Marcelli and Numana. It's
Okay.
on the Adriatic coast, just south of Ancona.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm
Mm.
I'm looking to put a couple in the portfolio next week when I'm there.
Amazing. So on that
Hmm.
note, we're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Time and time again, we see investors struggling to manage multiple projects effectively. We can help. Meet Conduit Asset Management. We assist real estate investors by bringing their property to highest and best use through consulting on every phase of their project, from initial due diligence review, project scope and management, all the way through to refinance assistance. With extensive knowledge of the steps involved in bringing commercial real estate projects to their highest and best use, Conduit can save you valuable time by knowing when and how to start key processes before they're needed. So why struggle to juggle multiple projects on your own? Let Conduit Asset Management help you make the most of your investments, maximizing your return on your real estate investment and minimizing your risk. Conduit Asset Management.
Properties and Five Oaks Land Development present the Stonehearth Mutual Fund Trust. One great fund, two great projects. Our MFT can accept a variety of registered funds and cash to diversify your portfolio. An MFT is one of the most tax-efficient ways to invest your capital and is widely used in real estate. Our MFT offers a competitive interest rate, flexible 2-year term, and a DIP option. Contact us for more info via email or by visiting shproperties.ca or fiveoaksld.ca.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us on the Inspire to Invest podcast. We have Judi Pare here. She's talking about everything from short-term rentals and building custom homes to land development. So obviously, I'm sure it goes without saying that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You've survived a pandemic, you've had lots of learning and education, but when you think back to all the different things you've done, what do you think are a couple of the biggest lessons? And if you could go back, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently to maybe manage those situations a bit better? or differently?
Yeah, so I think my biggest lesson is really understanding the skill sets of my partners. I've partnered with really great people, and I've partnered with not so great people in my career.
Yeah.
And I think it's understanding their skill set and understanding what they bring to the table, and making sure that you document that, and that you write down the rules of engagement. What are you doing? What am I doing? Because when you partner with people, you always think you're doing the most work. And when they partner with you, they think they're doing the most work. And neither one of you are right, So, or maybe both of you are right, and you're both doing the work. So I think for me, the biggest lessons was really just understanding the skill set of my partners and identifying why I would choose that partner. Like, what gap are they filling? So they should be doing something I can't do, or that I'm not uniquely great at, So, and I think that's what it comes down to is I stay in my lane now. I only do what I'm good at, and I expect the same from my partners. So I think that's the biggest lesson for me.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I mean, even for myself, when I think back to starting out with my business, I was offered the opportunity, I was issued shares, and we didn't even have a partnership agreement. Nor did we think it just wasn't even on our radar, because you don't know what you don't know. And then my partner decided to exit after 4 years for personal reasons. So all of a sudden we're like, you don't think about these things. But I think when you are going into business, you want to outline the roles and responsibilities, and also consider, well, if this doesn't work out, or there comes a time, like how that will be handled, and just trying to outline things, because you want to do that when you're on great terms, not maybe when there's been a communication breakdown or something bad has happened. So I think that's really important. Now, obviously you've had so much coaching, you've been a coach. What do you think is the best advice that you've ever been given, and how did that make a change for you or impact you?
Yeah, I think the best advice is to stay in your lane, to stay within your unique ability. Do the things that bring you the most joy, because you're going to be the most successful when it's bringing you joy. I broke down, my daily activities recently, and I took a week, and I decided everything I do in a week, and I wrote them down. It was an activity checklist of everything I did in a week. And I broke them into 4 categories: things that I'm uniquely great at, and it's within my unique ability, and it makes me so happy, and I love doing this, right? So this is what I'm really good at. Then there was this other bucket that was things I'm excellent at. And then another one, that things I'm competent at, and things I'm incompetent at. And I took all of those tasks and said, why am I doing things I'm incompetent at? Right. And I hired somebody to do that 25% of my day, or my week. And so I broke it down again recently. And so now I don't do anything I'm incompetent. I have people that do that. That's the whole who, not how mentality. Now about 75% of what I do, 50% is within my unique ability. 25% I'm excellent at, and there isn't anybody yet on my team that can do it, but it doesn't bring me a great deal of joy. I'm just good at it. So knowing I'm good at it and I get it done, okay, that makes me a little bit happy, but it doesn't make me extremely happy. And then all of the things that I'm competent at, there was about 25% of that, I'm getting rid of those things. So I think that the best advice I got was, don't do what you don't love doing. Like, get rid of those things, get somebody else to do it, because you'll be way more productive when you do what you love to do.
Yeah. And I think that's something that, it's always this ebb and flow, whether you're an investor, a business owner, an entrepreneur, that, you struggle along and you're trying to do these things. And sometimes it's to try to save money in some instances. For me, I did my own bookkeeping for the first 10 years, and that could be a couple hours or literally 2 days of my whole week. And I wasn't a trained bookkeeper, so I'm literally struggling through that. And that was literally the first thing that my coach told me to do, is you have to hire a bookkeeper. I had to just look at the cost. But then when we did that, our sales doubled that year. And I went from spending 2 days, sometimes a week, to just hitting a button and off payroll went, right? So we had to develop a system in place in order to communicate that. But, look at the impact that had with our business and our growth, just by taking that one thing off our plate. It's just amazing what kind of a change that can be. Now, I guess looking at everything you're doing now, like, what would you say is next for you? And one unique question I had recently was, found it just so interesting. It's like, what's your freedom number? And for some investors, that's like number of doors. It could be the cash flow per month. It could be a certain revenue goal or what you want to leave your family. Like, what does all that mean to you? And what does that number look like?
So so we'll talk about the freedom number. And I think you asked another question and I missed.
Just in terms of what's next.
What's next? Okay. So I've met my freedom number. I'm already there. So now it's about, and I've always asked this question to people that I coach is how much do you really need? Like really, how much do you need?
Yeah.
And what are you working so hard for?
Yeah.
Right. And the big question is why? Why are you working so hard? And what are you trying to achieve? And for me, I've achieved what I want to achieve, and I'm where I want to be financially. I'm where I need to be. However, there's more that I want to do. So for me, I'm really passionate about affordable housing and senior housing.
Yeah.
So what's next for me is focusing on projects that put more properties in inventory that are affordable rental units and that are safe, affordable housing and more housing for senior citizens. That's my focus. My focus is now just to provide safe, affordable housing for low-income families, new immigrants, as well as seniors in our community. And I think focusing on that and focusing on accessible housing so that we can get people into homes that are safe and accessible and that they have access to all the common areas. That's my focus now. And that's where I'm going to go, is to give back and to do more in my community and to be more inclusive, and I think that's where, that's really where my focus is going, is to allow accessibility and inclusivity to as many people as I can.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like I can understand why retirement is attractive to people working in a job where maybe they're not feeling fulfilled. But in an instance like this, where you are an investor and you're building your business, this is a different, unique sense of purpose, right? So everyone has those different things kind of playing in the background at all times. And I was at an event just a couple of weeks ago and they were talking about a woman that lost her husband in her senior years. And now she's in a position where she's kind of at the poverty line. And she's actually working on building a community because they were gifted, I think, 5 to 6 acres in Niagara. And they're looking for people to support them to basically build this seniors community and provide an opportunity for seniors living alone that can build that community to be together, because not only is it challenging from a financial standpoint, it's challenging emotionally and having that support in the community and stuff like that. And I think that's, when you look at inflation and housing costs and our vulnerable situation with seniors where they are on fixed incomes, I think this is something that's so important and something that more people need to be thinking about.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that she was gifted this acreage and she can do something.
Yes. Now she's trying to figure out how to move forward. Right. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I can always share some more information after the fact.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Now, I guess looking back, is there anything that you think you would tell your former self now, knowing the types of things that you know now?
I'd say keep your credit clean.
Smart.
Yeah. Keep your credit clean. Really understand your buying power and understand mortgages. Like, I think if I understood money more, I probably would have been more successful earlier. Right. So I think that's the number one thing. I got some really great advice from a mortgage broker once. And when I first started buying properties, one of the things I would do on a regular basis was go and speak to a local mortgage broker, and became friends with her. And we would have coffee and we would talk about my goals and what I was looking to do. And she taught me how important credit was and how important it was going to be for me in the future. And I didn't have good credit at the time. I had some life events that impacted my credit quite a bit. And she helped me manage that and understand it. And I think it's really important that people manage their credit usage as well, and their utilization, because it impacts their score. And a lot of people don't know that, if you keep your utilization at more than 30%, it impacts a third of your score. So keeping your utilization down on your credit actually increases your credit score. So I think that's the best thing. If I could tell my younger self, is understand credit, learn how credit works, and keep it clean.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. I mean, my dad hasn't filed his taxes in, I think, 25 plus years. So I think for me as a business owner, I was always terrified. Like if I could have my taxes done January 2nd, like I would do that. I'd be like, I'm done for the year. And I've always been very diligent about that just because I saw, my dad's circumstances, and obviously there was life events like you're talking about that led to that. And he kind of jokes about it because I'm like, how are you not in jail? Like government says you owe these millions of dollars. He's like, well, I just make the minimum payments. But I mean, he can't have a bank account. He can't have anything in his name. Like everything's in the rest of the family's name and stuff like that. But, I think you'll learn a lot from the people around you, and hopefully you can try to just learn from other people's mistakes instead of making your own if you possibly can. So
sure. And we're the average of the 5 people we hang out with the most, right? So if you really want to learn more, don't be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can learn so much more from other people. Now, obviously, the whole purpose of this podcast is inspired to invest. So speaking about inspiration and quotes, is there any particular quote that you find especially motivating and inspirational to you?
Yeah, it's actually quite funny. I always hear people say to me, oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky. You're so lucky that you have this, or you're so lucky you've done this. But my favorite quote is by Thomas Jefferson. And it says, the harder I work, the luckier I seem. I think that's so important. Is it does come with hard work, and it's not easy, and it's not a quick fix industry. I think it's if you just work hard and you remain true to yourself, everything will seem easy and will seem lucky in the future. You just have to work hard at it and maintain relationships and keep your knowledge going. So that's my favorite quote is, the harder I work, the luckier I seem.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It reminds me of another one that says, some people will work a few years of their life like most people won't. So you can live the rest of your life like other people can't. So I think you got to put in that work, right? So I think it's all connected. But for anyone that does have questions and wants to reach you or hear about opportunities that you have, since you mentioned you're starting a REIT, how can people find you?
They can find us at plentitudeinc.com. We've got a website, Plentitude Inc. So it's PLE.
I'll put it down below.
Yeah, you'll put it up there. You'll put it up there. So plentitudeinc.com or invest at Plentitude Inc. And that's how they can find us. You'll put it on there, but I'm on Instagram, Mama Judes. And that's what people call me, as Mama Judes. So my daughter decided that was my Instagram handle. So
that's nice. So it stands out. I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And of course, for anyone that's watching, if you've liked what you've seen, please make sure you subscribe to this channel. And you can also follow along at Inspire to Invest podcast across social. But thanks again for watching. And of course, Judi, thanks for being with us today.
You're welcome. It was great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to our sponsors, Conduit Asset Management, 5 Oaks Land Development, and Stonehearth Properties, for bringing you this episode of the Inspired to Invest podcast. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.